Hello and welcome to Georgia Bulldogs Live here on the Georgia Voice of College Football. I am Matt Green. That is my co-host over there, Bo Underwood. How are you doing today, Bo?
I'm good. Matt. How are you doing?
Excellent, man. I cannot complain. That NFL draft, always kind of like a little teaser, in that off season. Get your fix of a little college football, a little pro football.
That's right.
So it's always a good weekend for sports. I feel like obviously you got baseball season, week in and week out, but
yeah, and NHL playoffs have been crazy too.
there you go. And the NBA playoffs have been a lot of fun to watch as well. So it's been a solid time of the year, but we're here to talk. Say that again.
Yeah, I was just agreeing with you. It's been a great time of year.
For sure. But we're here to talk college football, sir. And I appreciate everyone who is tuning in live, everyone who's watching this week. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Give me a follow on social media at Matt_W_Green, or this guy over there. Don't be confused, at Bo Underwood _. So
I don't think it's confusing, man.
It's every time I say it, it sounds like I'm gonna mess it up. But no, an underscore gang over here, coming at you. But
here.
For the folks out there, get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the Voice of College Football. Contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com. And also got the website up and running. Voice of College Football, vocfb.com. So you want to see some of our past episodes, just go on there and check it out, and as well as any other team you're looking to get some coverage on. But I think the NFL draft is probably the first place to start after this weekend. Another successful NFL draft for the Georgia Bulldogs. 13 guys were drafted to the NFL. One thing I always, when we go back to that 2022 draft, that was so amazing, with all the first rounders after Georgia won the national championship. I just remember thinking, like, man, the narrative around this entire draft, had Georgia not won that national championship, would have just been completely different. Like, how did this team not win at all? Look, all these guys, And so it just keeps coming back to that 2021 team, and the stats just keep coming in. What was it? What are they now? 44 players from that 2021 team have been drafted.
44?
44 players just from that team. And so have you not seen this stat?
No.
So 01 Miami. A lot of
crazy stats. I don't think I've seen that one though.
Yeah, 01 Miami had 38 dudes drafted, and that's most people consider that like the greatest team of all time.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, 2017 Bama has the record with 47, and I personally think that's Alabama. That's Nick Saban's worst national championship team he ever had. 2017. It was just loaded with like freshmen and sophomores that weren't yet.
Who was the court? That was
that's
Tua.
When Tua came in for Hurts. Yeah. Because it's like Najee Harris wasn't amazing that year. He like barely played.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of the insane guys on that team were like freshmen who didn't do much that year specifically.
Yeah, exactly. That 2017.
Think about what the weakest Saban team is, but I can see where you're coming from.
Because that 2017, it's basically like, it's mainly because of on-field results. Like they just didn't dominate like they do a lot of other years. Like, and like Jalen Hurts, like he was good, not great. Well, he had like 16 touchdowns and like one pick or something that whole year.
In the Natty.
Well, exactly. And so it's that 2017 class was just so absurd. They hit on like their top like 12 guys in that class or something. And so it's like, on paper, they look a lot more impressive than I think they truly were that year. Like they just had multiple close games, and it's like that was the standard essentially to that point. It was like, whoa, what are you guys doing playing close games over here? You guys usually murder everyone you ever play. But that's my take. I think 2017, it's like on paper that Bama team was better than it truly like it was that season. But that puts it out now 46 draft picks Georgia's had the last 4 years. And the 46 is not including, the A.D. Mitchells of the world and the Jermaine Johnsons of the world.
They don't even count. So would they have more if you count them?
So those guys would count towards that first total I told you, like from the 21 team. Well, Jermaine Johnson he transferred before 2020. But in terms of
Jermaine Johnson was on that team in the first place. That's right.
Yeah, so he was. I guess he would have been the 2021 draft. No, he was 2022, right? He was at Florida State when Georgia won the national championship.
Yeah, he was 2022 draft.
So yeah, he would not be included in that total, but yeah, so it's just some ridiculous numbers keep coming out. I've seen differing stats because so Georgia's sitting at 44 and Micah Morris could still be potentially drafted. And Carson Beck will be drafted. So that's two more. Carson Beck's going to be drafted.
Who?
Carson Beck.
Oh, yeah, Carson Beck.
So that's two more right there. And then the other two is Jonathan Jefferson's at SMU, and then Austin Blaskey is at North Carolina. I've seen everyone, and so I doubt they're getting drafted, But Xavier Sorey at Arkansas, though, he could definitely be drafted. He was a freshman on that 2021 team.
He was. I don't know. I don't really know that much about how his Arkansas career has been going, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't either.
They were talking like crazy things about him when he committed here.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot about him this spring in terms of being a standout for Arkansas. So
sorry, I was putting in my laptop charger and it knocked my laptop. It knocked my light out.
No, man, get it together over there, Bo. Get it together. Just blacking it out over there.
Wait, I gotta get my phone to see where the outlet is.
Oh man, what are we doing over here?
All right, hold on.
What is this, amateur hour?
Yes.
No, you're good, man.
I didn't want my computer to die. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, you're good.
That was an embarrassing voice of college football moment.
For sure. We'll get past it. We'll rally. But yeah, even more impressive than the I guess you could argue more impressive. I think this is where I would like to see 2017 Alabama's numbers, because I think a lot of their guys, granted, a lot of those guys did play in that national championship game. A lot of those freshmen, Devontae Smith and Najee Harris, and
Devontae Smith played all right,
and Tua Tagovailoa. But those three guys didn't really make that big of an impact on that team, throughout the 14 games or whatever they played.
Not until the damn natty.
Not until it was to decide it all. But 30 of the 37 guys who played regular snaps in that 2021 national championship, 31 of them were drafted. So it's essentially that entire Georgia team that was playing in Indianapolis on that night just about got drafted. So had to throw those stats out. The two of us, not Falcons fans, so it doesn't necessarily mean as much to us as it does some others, but Falcons finally take a Georgia player, get Jalen Walker at 15th overall. What were your thoughts there?
Yeah, I loved it, man. I called my dad's a huge Falcons fan, so I called him the second they made the pick. I think it's great. I think it's a great pickup for the Falcons. I mean, that's a team that just had zero pass rush, nothing resembling a pass rush at all last year. They traded for Matthew Judon. That didn't really work out. They drafted Rukaroro. He didn't really see the field that much. That was the thing that you watched Falcons last year. It's like they have this great offense with all these great players. I know Kirk Cousins had a rough year, but once they put Penix in, their offense was starting to play pretty good. But it was the one thing they cannot rush the passer at all. I think Jalen Walker is a very good pickup for them because, I mean, he can rush the passer. You can put him at linebacker. I mean, he'll just be a great he'll be a good chess piece for Jeff Ulbrich to use, who I know a lot of things have been said about Jeff Ulbrich this weekend. So I'll leave it at that. But I love this pick for them. I was a little bit confused by the James Pierce pick because I see him as someone who's really not kind of the complete opposite of Walker as a prospect, and that he only does one thing, but he can do it really well as just a pure pass rusher and nothing against the run, really. So I feel like Jalen Walker
kind of speak to what the Falcons want. They want to get after the quarterback, and they just got 2 first-rounders to do that.
And I think Jalen Walker's versatility will help balance out the fact that James Pierce has none.
Yeah.
But yes, I did love that pick a lot. I thought it was I'm very happy for all my Falcons fans out there because I know y'all been wanting a Georgia player for the longest. So y'all got one.
For sure. And especially it's one thing when you just want a Georgia player because you're a Georgia fan, you're a Falcons fan. But to see a team like a franchise like the Eagles doing what they're doing and winning a Super Bowl, it's like, okay, maybe there's something to this. And then obviously, I have a soft spot. I've always had a soft spot for Detroit ever since Stafford. You went you went full Lions, and you're a diehard Lions fan over there. So to see them dip in to the red and black with 3 different times, right? With Dan Jackson,
3 times,
Tate Ratledge, and then Dominic Lovett. Dominic Lovett's the only one we didn't really see getting drafted.
We didn't talk about him at all. Yeah. I mean, I'm still pretty surprised Dominic Lovett did get drafted, just because I feel like he kind of got phased out of the offense towards the end of his career at Georgia. It's like they gave up on getting him the ball. They're like, let's just, all of his touches from here on out are going to be, manufactured screens and whatnot. But, I'm sure like there is a lot to love about Dominic Lovett with his junior year, or his last year at Missouri, I should say. He was getting a lot of hype then. So he'll be a guy that I'm sure, the Lions like his football character and his intangibles, and he'll get a chance to come in and work out on special teams and try to nab a roster spot. Dan Jackson is a guy that I think makes perfect sense for their culture. The Lions are well documented at this point. They're known as, the kneecap biters and the guys who, want all that grit and determination and all that good stuff. Dan Jackson fits all of that to a T. I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about just how hard of a worker he is, and how much he meant to that locker room, and also just how good of a player he ended up being his senior year. I mean, let's not make any mistakes. Dan Jackson is not just this culture fit. Oh, the whole locker room loves him. Like, no, he's a good player, and
real industrious player, gym rat.
Yeah, like he's more than that. I mean, he tested really well athletically at the combine. I think he did a lot better than people thought he was. So, as a Lions fan, I was stoked to see the Lions pick him up. And then finally, of course,
well, you should say at the pro day, right? Because he wasn't invited to the combine.
Oh yeah, pro day. Yeah, no, not the combine. He wasn't even invited to the combine, and I think he made that decision look pretty stupid at his pro day, because he ran like a 4.43. Like, it was a very good showing for him. It probably got him drafted. So, I think that's a great pick. He's a very Dan Campbell type of player. And then finally, Tate Ratledge, who they moved up a little bit to get in the second round. That's another just great culture fit. Tate Ratledge is I believe he has described himself as a dirt bag. That's what I read in the Beast somewhere. Shout out to Dane Brugler for that. He's 5-year starter, team captain. Another one of the biggest leaders, biggest gym rats on the whole team. And he's also just a nasty football player. And the Lions have had one of the best offensive lines in the league for the last couple of years, but it's getting a little bit older. Graham Glasgow kind of dropped off in his production last year. Frank Ragnow is getting older. You never know how much he has left in the tank. So I think that's a great pick in terms of need, but also just culture fit and best player available. I think it scratches all 3 of those boxes off. So, love what the Lions did in this draft, and I think all those guys have a chance to make the team and contribute to varying degrees.
For sure, Ratledge is a stud. Doesn't surprise me for him to go in the second round. But Dan Jackson, just I feel like one of the biggest things I judge safeties by is the ones that just fly to the football, the ones that always seem to be like in the right place at the right time. Like you saw Lewis Seen do it, you saw Javon Bullard do it, you seen Dan Jackson do it. Just the way those dudes are like missiles, just the way they hit people. They get there with bad intentions, I think, as some people like to say. So I just, Dan Jackson, there's no doubt in my mind that dude, watching him play last year, like he's an NFL player, and I think you heard more and more people kind of like, this isn't just some feel-good walk-on story. Like, this dude's a good player.
Yeah, I agree.
But Dominic Lovett, I feel like I've heard some about, like, him losing. He lost himself, like, his draft stock by going to Georgia. He should have stayed at Missouri and that sort of thing. I think people forget how good of a year he actually had in 2023. Like, Bowers missed some time with injuries. McConkey missed some time with injuries. Like, dude had over 50 catches and over 600 yards. Like, he wasn't necessarily the big play guy. Like, he had 20 more catches than Rosemary-Jack-Saint did in 2023. I was kind of surprised by that because Rosemary-Jack-Saint seemed to have like some big time plays that year. But I feel like he was kind of, I would say, underwhelming for what I think Georgia fans thought we were getting from Missouri. But in terms of like costing himself money, it's like, that's not the decision to go to Georgia. That was what happened on the field when he just seemed to like not remember how to catch the ball. Like, he seemed to be a more big play threat at Missouri, and he just didn't really make many of those in his time at Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think anyone would argue that his Georgia career was pretty underwhelming because, like, I mean, he was Missouri's leading receiver in 2022. He had he had like a 7 catch, 85-yard game against Georgia in that game where they almost beat Georgia. So
yeah,
for him to come to Georgia and, not like you said, he does deserve credit for 2023 being one of the steadier guys in that room when Bowers had tightrope and McConkey was dealing with everything he was dealing with. But it's just, that leap from 2023 to 2024 that I think people were kind of expecting just didn't really happen. And he probably, in all honesty, probably declined a little bit because of some of the drop issues that he had. But
yeah,
I know a lot of people really he's another guy who I'm sure, works incredibly hard from everything that I've heard. And also, like, he's got some shiftiness and some real quickness after the catch. I mean, there's a couple plays. He had a play in that Alabama game from this year where he hit some guy with a dead leg and then cut it up for like 40 more yards. And it's like, there is probably no one else on the team from last year that would have been able to do that. So, like, he's got some, if there's a Lions player I could compare him to, like, he maybe has some Golden Tate-esque qualities after the catch. Obviously,
I don't know about all that. Golden Tate?
Purely after the catch. Obviously, not the same player at all in terms of actually, creating separation, getting open, catching the ball, and blocking, especially. Golden Tate was a beast at all that. But in terms
Golden
of
Tate ran like he ran like a running back.
Yeah, but like just that wiggle and hips made out of rubber quality that he has after the catch, I can kind of see it. But I don't know. I think he's a long shot to make the team. I mean, it's obviously a flyer at 230, but I'm happy for him that he got drafted. I think it's really cool that he got picked up by the organization that he did.
Yeah, the biggest thing was he averaged 15 yards a catch in 2022 at Missouri, and he averaged just over 11 in 2023, and then less than 10 and a half in 2024. He just wasn't a big play guy. I'm shocked that, like, if you gave me a list, you could ask a trivia question of Georgia players with multiple 50 catch seasons. I would name so many players before I named Dominic Lovett. Like, I think AJ Green had like a 350 something catch seasons. Like, and he was a lot closer to 1,000 than Dominic Lovett was. But yeah, that I was surprised when I looked at his career stats. But keeping it moving, so obviously Mykel Williams, I think we both talked about. I think I predicted that Jalen Walker would be the first one to go. I think you predicted Mykel Williams. Mykel Williams was the first one to go. Going to San Francisco, like, that's just a great landing spot. Like, just one of the best franchises in the league over the last decade or so. Like, it's just a solid spot opposite Bosa on the other end, on the other side of the D line, and then a defensive player gets drafted by the Ravens, like, that's a win every single time. Like, Malachi Starks going to the Ravens is awesome. We got Roquan and Malachi Starks. The new era is Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, maybe.
Maybe. That's what they're saying.
That'd be pretty cool.
The Ravens are just one of those teams, man, where it's like, it seems like every year they're in there around, the mid-20s, and every year they just sit back and they relax, and then they watch as all these other foolish NFL teams allow them to be just like a bunch of, not a bunch, but there's always feels like there's a great defensive player on the board whenever the Ravens are about to pick, like.
Yeah, it's like there's these.
They just do it. They do it right. They're just one of those teams that does it right. So I think this is such great value at 27 to get a player like Malachi Starks to pair with Kyle Hamilton in that backfield. Oh man, Zach Orr has got to be licking his chops.
Yeah, and the Falcons had a chance to get Starks too with that second pick they had in the first round, and they ended up drafting 2 safeties. So I found that interesting. They didn't go with Starks, but yeah, it's like every year the draft, it's like you've seen those like lists that they're kind of hypothetical, but they're like the first pick is the last year's Heisman Trophy winner, and then the second pick is like some guy from a conference you never heard of, but he has a rocket arm. Like you just see there's kind of like a formula. It feels like every year, and this year wasn't one of them. There's usually a couple guys that might not be first round quarterbacks, but teams kind of convince themselves they really need a quarterback and they draft them first round anyway.
Well, someone did do that.
You think that's what they did with Jackson Dart?
Yes.
Where did he go? 28?
He went like 25th to the New York Football Giants.
I don't hate it though. Jackson Dart was really good. Like,
dude,
and he's got that dual. You hate it?
I hate it. I just nobody from that system doesn't translate to the NFL at all that they run at Ole Miss. And Jackson Dart, I think, just has very poor mechanics. Not a very strong arm. He's a good athlete, but he's not a great athlete. He's not, Jaden Daniels or anything running the football. I don't get why you traded up in the first round for a player like that. There's nothing I look at with him that I see that I'm like first round pick.
Yeah, I feel like he seemed like I was kind of the same way about Matt Corral. Like I was not buying Matt Corral at all. He feels like a better pro, and he's already out. He's at like 1 year in the NFL.
Matt Corral turned out, man.
Like, yeah, he's wearing Birmingham or something right now. You think they're the same? I see. I feel like he's a better passer than Corral. I don't know. Corral's game just like didn't translate at all. He had that game with had like 180 yards rushing or something, but like he was never gonna be that in the NFL. Dart's got a much bigger body. I don't know what they're listed at, but he looks bigger.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think the Giants are just a bad organization that's going to continue to stay bad because they do
That's probably true. But to your point, that's kind of what I'm saying. That's what I was gonna say. It's like you have like some high upside guys. They're like, this guy, his measurables are insane. They're like, and they'll take some chances here and there in the draft. And then the Ravens are just somewhere in the 20s. Like, we're gonna take this guy who's been a proven guy in college the last 2 or 3 years, and he's a stud from day one. It does feel like that's just such a Ravens pick.
Like they do it all the time. They did it with Marlon Humphrey. They did it with Kyle Hamilton. They did it with Nate Wiggins. Like every year they do this. So I have no doubt in my mind. I love that pick. All 3 of the first round picks I think just ended up in great spots. I'm very excited to see all of them.
For sure. Not surprised at all to see Arian Smith go in the mid rounds. Just you can't coach that kind of speed. Like you just knew someone was going to take a chance on that. You are surprised by that? 4th round?
Fourth round is pretty high.
I'd have to see who the receivers were that were available. I mean, this guy's got like legit like sub 4.3 speed. Like I think and with what he did in the Senior Bowl, also what hasn't been talked about enough is like you're not drafting a guy 4th round because of special teams. But that is an aspect that he does bring to the table. Like,
we were talking about it last week.
Yeah, so I mean that's it's not nothing, and then only high things to say about his character and everything like that, and his work ethic and everything. So had a good Senior Bowl showing. I think that definitely helped him, but he definitely had his moments in college.
No, you know what?
Some bad moments, but he had some good ones too.
You've convinced me. That's not as big of a reach as maybe I thought it was. I was surprised that he went in a round that didn't begin with S. 6 or 7, I mean.
Okay.
I just forgot second also begins with S. But I was pretty surprised by it, but yeah, once you really sit down and you think about all the good things Arian Smith does do, I can see a 4th round pick definitely being a good spot for him. So
yeah, it's like
Arian Smith, man. I'm really glad that he got drafted. I was hoping
for sure. He definitely had his injury issues for several years at Georgia. He finally was able to put together like one, good season. But yeah, I think he's not Mecole Hardman. Like I think we talked about that on the last show. Like so he's not like a 2nd round type of guy, but I think it's like NBA, you get in the 2nd round and a guy can just jump out of the absolute gym. It's like if a guy can jump out of the gym, maybe we can teach him how to shoot jump shots.
Yeah.
Like, you can't teach that athleticism. So I think Arian Smith's worth taking a shot on.
I agree.
And then my guy, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. Just don't sleep on him. Don't sleep on him in the 5th round going to Minnesota. And then who else did Minnesota get?
Great value.
Did Chambliss sign with Minnesota?
They signed in free agency. They signed Chambliss, and they signed someone else too.
There's one other one. Yeah, I'm forgetting. Because I want to say. Because Brinson, the Packers drafted Brinson, and did Stackhouse sign with the Packers?
Stackhouse signed there too. Yeah. So they signed Brinson, and they signed Brinson, or they drafted whatever.
There's not that many players. Who do we think? Was it Jurasic?
Yes, it was. It was Jurasic.
Okay. Yeah. I'm like, there's only a couple other guys who could have been signed.
It was. So they signed. Minnesota drafted Ty. They signed Jurasic and Chaz Chambliss.
But then, and then the last one that, unless you had any other ones to talk about, to see the Eagles go get another dog, get Smile Munden in the 5th round. Like, I feel like Smile Munden, they talked. I don't remember exactly what his foot injury was. Do you know what it was?
It was
the Liz
pretty
Frank
bad
or
from
something
what I
like
heard.
that?
He missed like 4 games with it. I think it was some kind of sprain. Yeah.
Well, whatever it was, I heard someone saying that it's the type of injury that if you get it a second time, like, you could be done, apparently. So the injury concerns are there with Munden. But man, I'm not saying he's Alec Ogletree, but like, I saw a lot of Alec Ogletree and Smile Munden at times. I feel like the last 2 years there's some injuries. Like, we saw him in 2022, like, starting on a national championship defense. Like, I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if Munden turned into like a hell of an NFL player.
Yeah, I think Munden is just one of those players who you just don't want to overthink, right? Because it's like, this guy is he was a 4-year starter, right? No, he was a 3-year starter. He played for 4 years. Led the team led a national championship team in tackling the first year he started. 2-time All-SEC player. Insane athlete. It's like, I get he plays a position that isn't as emphasized anymore in the NFL, and he has injury issues. I just combined the word issues and history. I get all that, but like if a guy's just a baller, he's a baller. I mean, Munden, to be as productive as he was at the school that he was at, is like, that guy's gonna come and play good no matter what. And it's pretty easy to tell the Eagles that, because the Eagles drafted Nakobe Dean, who's another highly productive off-ball linebacker from Georgia with some pretty concerning injury history. And they drafted him in the 3rd round when he could have gone in the 1st round if he didn't have all that, injury stuff. And Nakobe Dean, sure enough, becomes, a plus starter on a Super Bowl team. So it's probably pretty easy for the Eagles to sit there and be like, dude, like, Smile Munden is good, guys. Like, are you serious? So. Yeah, I think that's a great pick, and glad the Eagles got on the board again, because I love that that's become such a tradition, is they just draft Georgia guys every year.
For sure, especially with the GM being a Florida guy too. It makes it a cool dynamic. But I don't know what Lewis Cines got left in the tank. I thought Lewis Cines was going to be a good NFL player, but I mean, the Vikings cut him after he missed his rookie year, and they cut him after like 1 year, right?
That's the one guy who's been like a whiff compared to where he was drafted at, because he was a 1st rounder.
Yeah,
but he got a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, did he?
Yeah,
this past year. Yeah.
The Eagles signed him like right before the playoffs.
Yeah, so maybe he turns into something, but I would love to see Smile Munden and Nakobe Dean running around in the middle of that defense. It'd be good stuff. And we never saw that combo either.
Never. I don't think we ever really did,
because Nakobe was gone after 2021. But so another successful draft for the Bulldogs. It's good to see. And basically that's last year I had a couple fantasy football guys, like, figuring out where I'm going to go, Bowers, McConkey. This year, I don't know. I'm not sure how many fantasy relevance. We got Trevor Etienne. That's about it in terms of anyone. I don't know what the Panthers backfield situation.
We didn't talk about Dylan Fairchild either, but shout out to Dylan Fairchild. third round.
Yeah, for sure. And Jared Wilson, continuing the history of centers for the Patriots.
Way later. Yeah. He'll be next David Andrews. That's right.
There you go. And I think we touched on everybody at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
pretty much.
So Ohio State, I think they had 14. So I think Georgia was second with the most guys drafted. I feel like Georgia was the second best team in college football last year when they were healthy.
So I guess Ohio State's liking that more.
Yeah, and that's the game we didn't get last year. Georgia, Ohio State. I think if Georgia had been healthy, who knows what could have happened. But we'll see. There's always next year. Or this year, I should say.
Ain't that right?
But let's keep it moving. That's the past, the past generation of Bulldogs. They're moving on to the next level. The future is in high school right now, and I think we've talked about it. It's hard to stay as locked into recruiting as I once did with how so many of these guys just don't end up at the school they sign with eventually at a high school anyway. But I feel like this Jared Curtis commitment, it's in the title of the podcast. We're on Jared Curtis watch. And this feels like the most important individual recruitment I can remember in years, to be honest. And maybe it's just because Georgia's recruited so well that you missed out on one guy. I don't know. We'll get the next guy. Maybe it's just because of the quarterback position just seems bigger, like Eason and Justin Fields. Like those were just massive commitments when Georgia got them. I can't think of Raiola. That's another good one. I can't think of I can't think of many recruitments since like Justin Fields that I was like this kind of locked into.
Yeah, I think the only one might be Raiola, and Raiola's commitment was so filled with drama anyway. I think of course he ended up decommitting anyway, so it's hard to say that one was a huge one. But yeah, it might be. It's always for a quarterback is like, right? Like I'm trying to what's been the craziest Georgia non-quarterback commitment that I can remember in recent memory is, and I know this is very recent, so I might just be biased, but KJ Bolden. Because
that was definitely a dramatic one.
You had the Buford drama because it was right after Raiola had decommitted, and Georgia fans were like, man, like we hate Buford. No one from Buford ever comes here. Bolden, been committed to Florida State for so long, and then just at the last second he flips away from them to go to Georgia, which is the second time in the last few years that they just lost a blue chip DB at the last second because they also got Travis Hunter taken away from them.
Travis Hunter, I kind of forget about. You're just like, wait, he might not sign with Florida State on signing day? Does Georgia have a chance?
Deion did that because Deion did that out of just hatred for Florida State for not making him their head coach. So he's like, I'm going to take Travis Hunter from you. But yeah, I think Jared Curtis definitely. I think it's fair to say that there's a couple examples you could maybe argue that have been since Justin Fields, but I'm not mad at that take at all. That this is like the most. Maybe it feels like the most pivotal individual commitment since then.
Yeah, like as big as Trayvon Walker. Yeah, as big as Trayvon Walker or Jalen Carter or something was to the success of Georgia. It's like you don't like just hang on individual defensive linemen commits, like Brock Bowers, obviously like generational player at Georgia. He's like the 50, 60 something ranked player in the country. So I don't think, I'll be honest. I'm not gonna say I hated on the Brock Bowers commitment, but I heard so much hype about it. But Georgia fans got so excited about tight ends all the time. And I'm just like, I lived through Jay Rome and then Jeb Blazevich.
Isaac Nauta.
Isaac Nauta was so big time. And Isaac Nauta was good, but it's like 7th rounder, right? To Detroit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to get that excited about a tight end. That's just like a good Orson Charles. Orson Charles is a great player, but he was fine.
Even Darnell Washington didn't really turn out to be what people said he was going to be.
I mean, that's true for the number 1 ranked tight end in the country. Like,
remember when Eric Gilbert played at Georgia?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that the highest ranked tight end recruit of all time came out in 2021 and it was not, and he was from the state of Georgia.
Yeah, and it
was
wasn't
not Brock Bowers, and Brock Bowers ends up being essentially like the best tight end in college football history. So I feel like I feel like I did literally cite Jeb Blazevich. I don't want Jeb Blazevich to be catching strays over here, but I was like, Jeb Blazevich is like a top 20 player in the country. Like, I'm not gonna get that excited about a tight end. And man, I was wrong. Brock Bowers was insane. And I remember that off season. I want to say Brandon Adams said this, which he was like spot on, like reading between the lines, because Todd Monken was asked about Eric Gilbert, and Todd Monken was like, yeah, Eric Gilbert is kind of like a Brock Bowers type.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, Brock Bowers type? We don't even know what Brock Bowers is yet. How good will this guy be? And clearly he was spot on there. They already knew how good that guy, what he caught like the first 2 or 3 passes of the game against Clemson.
Yeah, against Clemson.
Like, so is this guy our best player? What's happening
right now? It's like, oh my God, it's Brock Bowers.
For sure. And as we're talking about Brock Bowers, I don't want to compare anyone to Brock Bowers, but they're calling Mark Bowman out of Matter Day. They're calling him Baby Brock. He rocks number 19. I don't know. Rusty Mansell hypes him up all the time. I don't want to compare anyone to Brock Bowers.
Those Matter Day boys have a pretty good track record, man. You know, it's hard to go there and be bad. Shout out to Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Shout out to Nate Frazier. George they brought in someone else for this class from Matter Day, didn't they? Or maybe I'm just thinking of Mark Bowman.
Frazier went there, obviously.
That was Matt Barkley back in the day. It was Matter Day. I think Sanchez was Matter Day. Mark Sanchez.
There's a ton of Matter Day guys.
Yeah, they got a nice track record for sure. But yeah, so Jared Curtis announcing next Monday, May 5th. I think that's just it's just massive. Like we named a couple of the times that Georgia signed 5-star. You can go back to Aaron Murray, Matthew Stafford. Like those were just massive commitments. So I feel like a quarterback committing at this time in the class too, it feels like this is what Georgia needs to kind of get this class started. You know, like let's get the ball rolling. Like it seems like the whole class is taken care of in the summer these days. So obviously there's a 50-50 shot this guy chooses Oregon. So we're talking about him like it's a done deal, but it's a massive commit. Obviously he was committed to Georgia like a year or two ago and wanted to take visits in good conscience, which I respect that, you know. So but George's been involved the whole time, so hopefully they can sign him. Sparky, or is that Spanky 1914? I'd rather have Bo Bentley. What are your thoughts? Bo Bentley or Jared Curtis, Bo?
I mean, I don't know a ton about Bo Bentley. I know that he's from, I think, Texas, right? I don't think he's ranked quite as highly as Jared Curtis is, but he's a top 10 quarterback in the country. I can pull up his 247 real quick, but I mean, Jared Curtis has been one of the top, has been like the top quarterback in this class for quite some time. I think it's interesting now to the way that like Georgia fans talk about recruiting quarterbacks, because the program isn't really in a position where it's like looking for a savior anymore. Yeah. And I think that's the major difference in vibe that I've noticed from when they were recruiting like Jacob Eason and Justin Fields and Matthew Stafford and you know, Jake Fromm, all those guys, is like back then it was like, who's going to be the quarterback that leads Georgia to their first, you know, to their first national title since 1980. And of course it didn't turn out to be any of those guys. It turned out to be the random 5'9" walk-on that they had on their team for like 6 years. So
5'9"? You're saying he's 5'9"?
I mean, dude, he's listed at 5'11", and
okay,
I like
that's probably true.
You subtract 2 inches from every sport athlete who's listed under 6 feet. Like Kyler Murray was listed at 5'10" when he came out of the draft. I'm like, there's no way he's 5'10". But yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting because every other 5-star quarterback who's committing to these programs who didn't win back-to-back titles 3-4 years ago, I just feel like there's a different kind of pressure on them than there is at Georgia. So
yeah, and
I don't know. It's not looked at as like the fate of the program is in the balance anymore, as I feel like it did with like when Georgia fired Mark Richt and it was up in the air for a little bit about whether or not Jacob Eason was going to stay committed.
Yeah,
that felt like life or death. Georgia football. Are they going to lose Jacob Eason or not?
That's true.
And I don't think it's ever going to feel like that again, just because Georgia finally, got over the hump and, won those 2 championships. Maybe it will in 4 years, but
I think that's fair. And maybe because we're getting into the more like we're getting into the NIL era even more. It's like those first 2 championships they won were technically the NIL era, but it wasn't. I don't know. I feel like it didn't. It wasn't the same thing with like just free agency everywhere. And Bo Bentley, no disrespect to him, 6'2", 200. Jared Curtis is the prototype, 6'4", 225. Like that's just I mean, he's got that athleticism, kind of like the plus athleticism too. That I feel like you need that element to the game. Like I think that's one thing that's kind of bummed me out with a lot of the quarterbacks Georgia's had, is that you see everyone in college football, the quarterback design runs are a huge part of their offense, and so few Georgia teams have actually had a running element from the quarterback. And when we did, we won 2 national championships. So I feel like that's not nothing. That was a legitimate aspect of Stetson Bennett's game. So I like a guy that's just got that a little bit of running ability. I will say, I don't know, Bo Bentley could be a better runner for all I know. So I won't, I'm honestly not sure about that, but I put all my eggs in the Jared Curtis basket, as you can tell. Yes. So I'll be rattled if Georgia doesn't get him. But the other big one that's announcing here in the coming weeks is Jackson Cantwell, number 1 player in the country, number 1 offensive tackle. And this dude moved his commitment date back. I think he was going to announce on the 30th. If it wasn't today, maybe been the 28th. It was either April 28th or April 30th or something. Now he's announcing on May 13th after scheduling an unofficial visit to Georgia on May 10th, which, this used to be commonplace. Now there's way less, reading between the lines and all the everything on the message board, rumors and everything. This used to be what we all did. Now we just kind of sit back and wait for them to announce it. But the one thing I'm kind of reading into this is the unofficial to Georgia, because he can take an official visit to Georgia. Like it's still on the board, and he's using an unofficial visit before he's committing. Makes me think maybe this guy's locked into Georgia, and if he commits, now we can use that official in June, July or something, help get some other recruits on campus. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. I don't know anything about anything, but just reading between the lines, I feel like that could be a positive, that it is an unofficial visit that he's taking to Georgia.
Yeah. I think it definitely could be. I hate like convincing myself. I hate like looking at stuff like that, and because I'll always do that, and I'll just convince myself that it means he's coming to Georgia or whatever school I want him to go to, and then when he doesn't, I'm just like, what? It was right there. But yeah, I mean that's definitely worth looking at. This kid is like a freaking beast, man. He's what, like 6'8", like 330 pounds or something. Like
and I feel like I never really got my hopes up. Sorry to cut you off. I feel like I never really got my hopes up for Georgia to get Cantwell. It feels like in recent years when Georgia gets into some of these bidding wars, like a David Sanders or something, like according to what a lot of people say, like David Sanders, Georgia was in his top 3 and they were nowhere close in the money, and then Georgia just kind of fell out of that group. And with Cantwell, I kind of thought number 1 offensive tackle in the country from Missouri. We're probably not going to just get into some bidding war with him. And then Steve Wiltfong's crystal ball comes in, the Fong bomb, and so now I'm like, okay, now I definitely have my hopes up that Georgia's going to sign the number 1 offensive tackle and the number 1 quarterback in this class. Or I guess Curtis is now like number 2 or 3, I think, depending on where you look. But I mean, up there.
One committing would probably make the other one more likely to commit, right?
You'd have to think it wouldn't hurt, especially quarterbacks.
Tackle, that's PB&J.
Exactly. Easton and Cleveland committed like the same day that years ago. I feel like the quarterback, it just feels like that domino that can kind of like start to lead the class. So that's massive. Those are the number 1 and 2 guys I'm watching right now. Obviously, you want to get the number 1 player in the state of Georgia every year, especially when it's a defensive player. Tyler Atkinson out of Georgia. I feel like because these teams seem to have a salary cap at some point, I don't see Georgia getting all of these guys. And a couple years ago, maybe Georgia signs number 1 offensive tackle, number 1 quarterback, number 1 linebacker all the same year. But it feels like there's there's a give and take. Like if you're getting some of these guys, probably because you're not getting others. But Tyler Atkinson, I don't even know where he's leaning right now. I think he's still got like a top 5 or 6, but he just doesn't feel like a guy who's going to end up in Georgia's 2026 class.
I would be kind of surprised just from the way that it seems to be going and the way that it seems like Georgia's focusing its attention on. But there's always a chance when it's the number 1 player in the state of Georgia. You never know who just wants to stay at home.
Yeah, and you're looking at that inside linebacker track record at the state of Georgia. Mm-hmm. Like it recruits itself for sure. I don't even know if the Adidas thing is a factor, because I know he has like a contract with Adidas along with other handful. So I don't know if he needs to end up at an Adidas school or something. Who I guess maybe Miami. They're like the best Adidas school. They're out there. When I think Adidas, I think Louisville. That's like one of the first ones I think of. There's not many.
Yeah, I don't know a ton of it. I couldn't rattle off many brands for you.
Yeah, I'm not sure who the top schools are that are Adidas. So that might be. I remember LeBron was an Adidas guy back in high school too. So that
LeBron was.
He was.
LeBron James.
LeBron and Sebastian Telfair. Yeah, they were go look at some old Slam magazines from back when they were in high school. And
I did this last week on the show too. I think I have this over here right now. Yeah. I have a Slam magazine LeBron t-shirt.
Oh, there you go.
But I don't see any Adidas in it. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't know that he was signed.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a cover. There's also a dude, Major Wingate, that went to my high school, North Gwinnett, that was like apparently had an Adidas contract like before he got to North. I'm not really sure how that worked. He ended up going to Tennessee. Wasn't nearly as big time as LeBron or Sebastian Telfair, but he was big time in his own right.
Oh yeah, no, he was. Yeah, he did his.
You see the Adidas stuff? So yeah. So then once you're going out of high school, then who knows what the rules are? But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But I always you see Georgia's recruiting class like every year, and it's like a couple 5 stars out of the state of Alabama or out of the state of Georgia, and they end up at Georgia. Other than maybe like Caleb Downs in recent years, but yeah. So anything else to add on the recruiting before we move on?
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right, let's get to our weekly segment here this offseason, our 2025 position preview. We've almost done it all. We're going to the corners tonight. Yes. So we're going to do the corners. Looking at 2024, and these stats aren't just the cornerbacks, but looking at Georgia's pass defense a year ago, it was fine. It was good, not great. There was, there were some of those games. They gave up 300 to Mississippi State, gave up like 300 passing yards. The worst
performance of the year. They just
had some of those.
Daniel Harris got benched for allowing a 75-yard touchdown in that game.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, they had 8 interceptions a year ago. That's tied for the 4th fewest in the SEC. And also only 3 of those were from the cornerback position, and all of them were by Dalen Everett. So
just all against Texas.
They may have all been. Did he have 2 in the first one?
Dalen Everett had one game where he had a turnover, he had a forced fumble and a pick in the first game.
You're right. That was the first one.
In the second game, he had 2 picks.
Yeah, because he had the pick.
He forced 4 turnovers total against Texas.
You're right, because he had the pick on the first drive of the game, and then he had a pick on what should have been the game sealing.
Yep, and then Gunner Stockton's
right back to him. Yeah, that was well, you get a pick with 2 minutes left in a game, and it ends up in overtime. I'm not sure.
There's another universe where that Stockton pick goes down as one of the worst interceptions ever. But luckily, Georgia
was it Lawson Lucky that got the tackle? That could have easily been 80 yards.
If Lawson Lucky doesn't make that tackle, oh my goodness, dude, we're talking completely different about that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely different about Gunner Stockton, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But they allowed 14 touchdowns a year ago. Georgia did in pass defense. Most they've allowed since 2020, and which was a shorter season. Also, they allowed 15 in 2020. So I just feel like they were good, not great in 2024. Dalen Everett was the guy that got kind of picked on in 2023. I feel like he came into his own in 2024, but it's like, I don't know, it just feels like a tradition, like at Georgia, like a tradition we don't like, of like a first-year starting corner is just gets picked on. Like it was like Tyson Campbell as a freshman got picked on, and then you kind of see that they find the weak spot in the defense, and they try to exploit it. But Daniel Harris, I think everyone, like after Julian Humphrey, so in the portal, Julian Humphrey goes to A&M. Chris Peel just got in the portal this spring. And Julian Humphrey had kind of lost his spot before, he transferred, and the fact that he transferred before the SEC championship too, just like I think that says even more about what's going on in that situation. But I feel like everyone this offseason, we kind of talked about this when we talked about the spring game, but everyone, myself included, wants to see Ellis Robinson, number 1 player in the country, 5-star. And you just kind of assumed fans love the rankings. They love the 5-star rankings. You just kind of assumed Daniel Harris being that weak link in the secondary last year, that's where Ellis Robinson was going to move in. But now Daniel Harris, after this spring, I mean, he obviously Dalen Everett was out this spring, so it's hard to say. But I mean, Daniel Harris looks like a player, and he's what is he 6'4", 6'3", like 200, like playing corner. Like dude is a specimen at corner, and Kirby Smart loves those tall corners. But yeah, outside of Everett, I assume Everett and Harris will be the starters, and then Ellis Robinson and DeMello Jones probably the next two to get playing time.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say right now it's pretty easy to assume Dalen Everett has one of those spots locked up. I mean, he did probably get picked on a little bit in 2023 in his first, because that was his first year starting because he was next to Lassiter. But I don't know. I've always thought Dalen Everett's a good player. I mean, he had probably the most big plays given up of any corner last year for Georgia, but that's also because he was guarding the team's best receiver for pretty much the whole time. And then whenever Julian Humphrey had to do it, he would get done even worse.
He was not guarding Ryan Williams on that
that's what I was
long touchdown.
Like, see, the one time when Julian Humphrey's guarding the other team's best receiver, then that's what happens. So yeah, I think Dalen Everett is going to be one of the better corners in the SEC. Probably one of the most just reliable starters on the team in general. I think like everyone wants their number 1 corner to be prime Darrelle Revis in man coverage, and that's not a realistic expectation to have. But I do think he'll be very good next year. And then yeah, I agree with you, man. Daniel Harris this spring, I think there's really no denying. I mean, he was a guy who started for probably half of the season last year. And everything that I've heard about him this spring have been, he's stepping up even more. And when we were able to see on G-Day, I mean, he has a beautiful interception in that game, has a lot of really good coverage reps, didn't allow that much. Like, I think he'll be the starter. And then they got a good problem to have too, because yeah, like you said, I'm right there with you. I'm a big Ellis Robinson fan. I really hope he gets on the field because I kind of wish he would have been able to more last year, but like, there's only room for 2 boundary corners, and it's the guys' experience is probably the most important thing, because I know, like you said, it's like, it is like a tradition almost to have the first year starter at corner get picked on every possession. But I think every football team is like that. I don't think there's probably not a harder position to play as a rookie or as a freshman or just as a new player in general than cornerback. It's the hardest position in football, if you ask me. So I think experience really matters there, which is why I would expect the 2 most experienced players in Harris and Everett to be the starters. Even though Robinson and DeMello, there's a lot to like about both of those guys too.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think I agree. I think corner is probably the hardest individual position in football. I mean, other than maybe quarterback, there's a lot of things the quarterback has to worry about. He has to worry about everything. But in terms of wide receivers, are like essentially the best athletes on the football field, like the most dynamic, and they know where they're going each play.
Yeah,
like the corners have to try to stop that. The corners are always my favorite players growing up. Champ Bailey, Charles Woodson, Ty Law. Those are always my guys growing up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. I think if Daniel Harris can lock down that spot, I think Georgia's secondary becomes, a lot more solid, especially with, what they're replacing at the safety positions. They really need those corners to be solid in their roles. And we'll include the star position with the safeties next week. And then I think in terms of freshmen, I think Jonte Gilbert and Dominic Kelly, I think, are the only two true freshman corners they have in. So I don't expect those guys to get on the field. But yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of corners on this team in terms of, you look at like true like scholarship players. And they had that Indiana transfer. Is he still there? I can't remember that. Dude transferred from Indiana like a year or two ago.
I don't even know if he's on the team anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But we'll see. And there's the dude that transferred from Oregon, right? He definitely ended up somewhere else. I can't remember his name either. But he's definitely not at Georgia anymore. But yeah, I think the cornerback position, it's definitely a big one for Georgia in 2025.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is every year. And like there's not, they haven't had a real like true lockdown guy there probably since like DeAndre Baker was there. But if anyone
Eric Stokes, you don't think Eric Stokes is locked down?
I don't think he was the man-to-man corner that DeAndre Baker was. Like he was great, but DeAndre Baker didn't allow a touchdown for his last 2 years of college. At all. He was
down for sure.
He was a different type of dude in man coverage, at least at the college level. They don't have a guy like that because nobody ever does have a guy like that. That's just not a player that you can get accustomed to having. But I will say, I'm expecting
Lassiter.
Lassiter, yeah. See, but also Lassiter is also like I love Kamari Lassiter. He was like probably my top 3 favorite players on the team last year. But he just, in terms of the like just man-to-man island, one-on-one, me versus you, and my coach isn't worried about it at all. I just don't think there's been a guy like that in a few years. Not saying they haven't had great corners. Lassiter probably is the best corner that they've had since Baker, but just not like that. He's not that player, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we haven't necessarily had, and I think that's why, Ellis Robinson, like you see the guys that are number 1 corner in the country coming out, like obviously Travis Hunter was one of them, and he was a ridiculous athlete, but like the Derek Stingley, just the dude who's just like ready from day one. I think that's the one thing you're just kind of disappointed. You're like, I was just hoping Ellis Robinson, I thought he was going to come in and be Revis Island.
Derek Stingley or Travis Hunter.
He's not Derek Stingley. What the hell? This guy sucks. No, but yeah, I'm still excited. Hopefully, Ellis Robinson is able to make an impact this year, but should be a strong position for Georgia all around. And a sneaky tradition there. Like we just start naming a bunch of guys like DeAndre Baker, Eric Stokes, Tyson Campbell, like Keely Ringo. I think
Keely Ringo even,
People kind of acted like he wasn't that good at Georgia. I'm not really sure where that came from. I think it might be another thing of like, this guy was a top 5 player in the country. Why isn't he Derek Stingley? But yeah, like Ringo and Lassiter were so strong. Like it's been several years in a row of Georgia just having like 2 strong corners.
Yeah, which like, dude, that's like, again, that is like the hardest position to play, if you ask me. So the fact that they've been able to not have just disasters back there every year, like last year was probably their weakest corner room they've had in many years.
I think so. All right, Bo. Well, that's all I got. I appreciate everyone who's tuning in, watching live this week. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, go Dogs.
Yes, sir. All right.